to tell you a story about how my Super Bowl Sunday started. Well, it was wonderful. I woke up. My husband and I had our coffee together. Charlie Brown actually rolled around a raccoon poop first, so that was bad. Not so much for me, but for Rob, because he had to clean it up. So that wasn't a great start for Rob, my husband. But Charlie Brown was very happy to be rolling around a raccoon poop. So then, Rob was excited because he was going golfing, and I was excited because I was going to be alone. Not that I don't love him, I just enjoy my time by myself. So typically when I'm alone, you know, I think about, like, now I have extra time to play on my phone. That's what I call it, play on my phone. So I read like a million articles, I'm on every social platform, and somebody posted, who I right now can't even recall who it was because it was such a rabbit hole for me. Somebody posted about this article that this mom wrote after losing her son to a heroin overdose. So he was 19 years old, and it was a bad morning for me. Now, that sounds horrible, actually, because if it was a bad morning for me, can you imagine what that morning or evening was like for that mom to get that call that her son is dead at 19? So, of course, I'm reading this article and I'm sad, but you know, there's typically a line in a book that you're reading or an article that you're reading that really just grabs you. Well, what happened was this mom that lost her 19-year-old was obviously remarried and had this child that was 19 who passed away by her previous husband. And she got remarried and they had a child together. And this child was only, I think she said, 6 years old. So the 6-year-old had idolized his older brother. And there's all these beautiful pictures of the two of them together. And so, you know, she goes on to talk about this truth of losing a son to a heroin overdose. So the line that stuck out for me was that she did not have the courage to tell her child, her little boy, that his older brother had overdosed from heroin. So her husband took her son out, and I believe they took a car ride, and he had to tell this poor child that his brother was dead. Ugh. Not gonna cry too much because there's like a ridiculous amount of people walking by right now. Perfect timing. That's what I love about video. Just capture it all. So this young child finds out from his father that his idol is dead, and he lets out a wail that no child should ever scream from pain. And I have a younger brother who is, this isn't a good idea to tell this story. I'm gonna get through it. Can you imagine how much I was crying that day? Ugh. So I'm gonna have a little sip of champagne. I'm kidding, I don't drink. But this is sparkling water from the Ring, courtesy of the Ring. Which I can't believe, like, I'm crying talking about the Ring right now. It's great publicity for them. It's a very small cup too, by the way, to drink champagne in. But it's sparkling water. What's the name of it? Do you remember, Alyssa, behind the camera? Vesca?
Vivo?
Vivo? Something fabulous. It's not from here. Nothing's from here at the Ring. Anyway, we'll do another vlog about the Ring another time. So getting back to me going into the ugly cry. So this child is devastated, and I have a younger brother. He was, I was 10 when Sean was born, and we say Sean actually in New York, and now sometimes I catch myself saying Sean. It's Sean. So Sean was only 10. And so when I was in the throes of my addiction, he was a young boy. And it's like really, really amazing that my parents never got that phone call and that he never had to hear about me overdosing. I never did heroin. And I'm not saying like, I never did heroin, so that makes me a better drug addict. That makes me more affluent, or like, I did everything, okay? I just didn't do heroin. That would have been next, I'm sure, if I didn't have this horrific fear of needles. So yeah, so there was this really unbelievable moment that I had for the first time, survivor's guilt. That's never even, every time people say survivor's guilt, I'm like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, enough. Like, people are dead and you're alive. What the hell do you have guilt about? That's crazy that I even said that out loud, but that's truly how I feel. And I felt it that day. I was like, wow, like why did this kid get to, like why did he die? And why did I get to live? So it was 2 hours straight of ugly cry that I am not showing you on this video, but it was really painful. And so of course, what do? While it's happening, I go down the rabbit hole even more, and I start like looking this woman up and looking up pictures of their family, and they were like, oh, so happy, and you know, just such a normal, beautiful family that looked like they had, you know, remarried and, you know, found love again and now have this child, and they obviously got along so well, and it was just heartbreaking. So then of course I kept going. I don't know why I torture myself. I don't typically torture myself, but I needed to know, like, why? Why did this happen? And what was happening with this poor kid? He had been struggling for years, which is normal in this story, right? It's not typically somebody just does heroin for the first time and dies, although that happens. But he had been struggling with opioids, and very common to hear now that this opioid crisis is so horrible, and now kids are ODing on heroin because it becomes too expensive to get the opioids or whatever it is, and then they take heroin and then they're dead because it's so powerful, and even more so than it ever was, from what I understand, because I haven't touched a drug or alcohol in almost 25 years, so I don't even know what that's like. But I do know that there were more times than I can count on one hand that I should have been dead, for sure. And if you don't believe me, you should call my parents. And so when I hear today, well, I don't hear it as much anymore, but when I first got sober and we would be going to Al-Anon or therapy or whatever we were involved in at the time, when I would hear my parents tell the story of like they got a phone call that, you know, they found my purse in a dumpster, so they thought I was dead. Like, that pain must be horrible. So, because I'm sober, as long as I am, I'm going for the champagne again. Even though it's not champagne. Right, Alyssa? I mean, you're gonna have to attest to this.
No, it's true.
Yeah, it's just a distract technique so I don't cry anymore. It's working. It's very strange, actually, to sip out of a plastic flute with sparkling water on camera. So, sidebar. So anyway, what happened? So they would get that call all the time, and now I think about what my family went through more than I think about anything. So it's like, and then because I've been so vocal about what I've been through in my own recovery and what I went through as an active alcoholic and drug addict, that so many people are suffering through losing loved ones or having somebody in their life that is struggling with alcohol, or knowing somebody that's dating someone that has a drinking problem, but they're very successful. I do hear that a lot. It's funny. Well, not funny, haha, but funny that people say that, almost like, I don't want you to judge me. This person is very successful and they have a drinking problem, but they are drug addicts. But I don't know why, because they grew up in this amazing home. It doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter, is the point. I come from like Beaver Cleaver. And for those of you who are younger than me, don't know what that is. So it just means that I grew up in a very nice home. I went to private schools my whole life. I have parents that are still married, like 50 years married. They've been together since they were like 12. Meanwhile, they told me not to date till I was 16. So there's that. So it doesn't matter, but it happens. And I know that there's so much shame wrapped around it. So I have to give so much credit to this mom, because it is the real stories that are going to make change, that are going to make a difference. And I really do believe more than ever that people's testimony is really what makes that difference. Because for me, if I did not have Alcoholics Anonymous, if I did not have people that were understanding of what I had been through, then I don't think I could have ever made it. If I didn't have the right help, if I didn't have the right therapist at the time, if I didn't have the love that I had in my family, I wouldn't have made it. And you know, when you're sober, then you make amends to people that you've hurt. And then you just don't hurt people anymore if you can. Like, that's a good way to live. And you make living amends, and you treat people better that you were once making them crazy thinking that your purse was in a dumpster, right? So you live right. And this kid never gets that chance, and this mom doesn't get to see her child anymore. But I hope she knows, and maybe one day I'll have the great opportunity to talk to her. But what a difference it made for me is I emailed my brother right after I read it. And I was like sobbing. So I'm typing this email to him. I also forwarded it to my mom. Fun fact, Mom, if you're watching, I did email it to you, but you don't check your email as often as, say, I do, or Sean does. So, you know, I cause a lot of pain and a lot of damage, and we do as drug addicts and alcoholics while we are active. And it is a disease. So, like, if you don't understand that it is a disease, I would highly recommend that you get educated, because the American Medical Association would never, I promise you, they would never reimburse for rehabs. And I went to 2 and a halfway house and a sobering up station, which that's what everybody called it, but it was a mental ward. I think maybe my parents called it that to make me feel better. Oh, honey, you're just at a sobering up station. I think it was the mental ward, because I heard people screaming. And that's okay. Sometimes I'd like to be in a place like that. With all my crazy thoughts. But, you know, I can't help but make jokes because it's so uncomfortable to talk about. Ugh. I don't ever want to talk about it again, actually, most of the time when I'm talking about these things. But I know that if I do, I might help you. Or you might share this with somebody else who's struggling. And my most recent conversation with somebody who knows that somebody else is struggling was just about this person who is successful. And, you know, I thought, I wonder if they know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, and these are free programs. You know, I don't say much negative things about rehabs. I think they were certainly the jumping off point for me. I think that if I didn't have that, I would have never thought I might have had a problem. It definitely made me think twice when I was drinking a lot or using drugs. But I did not get sober because of a rehab. You know, I got sober because I was sick and tired of living my life that way. It wasn't like a family intervention or going to jail. And that's the other thing. People really think that you will stop because you have a great family, or because you're married and you have such a great wife at home. Why would you keep doing this to her? Or I could almost hear somebody saying, why would you do this to me? I love you so much. It has nothing to do with anybody else. It's literally a disease that, you know, it affects our mind, body, and spirit, and it's insidious. And that's why I do a lot of work trying to stay happy, because I never want to go back to that place. And I'm certainly grateful that I did not overdose, but I hope that that mom knows that she's doing more good than not by speaking about it. Because I did read the comments that she had made, because of course I went down the whole rabbit hole. I even listened to his music. Like, I played it, and I listened to the song he was practicing on the guitar. I was really like, my friend Nick had texted me during all of it, and I just wrote back, warning, I am reading this article and listening to this music, because it was not a good time. But then by the end of the day, I had felt like I had resolved yet something else inside of me where I needed to fix something with my own family and talk about it more with them, because, you know, I don't know about you, but in my Irish family, we don't always communicate very well. And we harbor things, or maybe we don't say things to each other that we should. And it's easier, like what I like to do is just not talk to them anymore. Sometimes that's easier. The harder thing is to have the conversations. So I am a firm believer in communicating. So I'm communicating this not because I want to, but because I feel like I need to, and I hope that it helps somebody else. And I will put the link to the article in these notes underneath, and I hope that something good comes out of this for this mom, because she helped me.